does it think? What makes it move? Why does it breathe? Questions anyone would ask about a man if they'd never seen one before. So for 5 days, a man was borrowed. The story that Travis Walton and 5 other witnesses told was so unbelievable, so unimaginable, that it has become the most famous case of UFO abduction ever reported.
This is, your first time here on Jackal's Head. I wanted to give you a nice, welcome. We have a lot of people in the chat room. They're really excited to have you on the show. I spoke to you earlier tonight, and again, I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being on the show here. And with me here is my co-host, Jamie from Florida UFO. He's going to be on with us tonight.
Yes, it's nice to meet you, Travis, and it's exciting to have you on. It's going to be a great night.
Yeah. Now, Travis, I know everybody knows the story. It'd be kind of silly to, go back and just tell the story over again. But as we all know, in 1975, you were a logger who was actually abducted by aliens. You were there with a crew of your friends and, co-workers, and the abduction happened. Let's go back a little bit to that time. Let's just get right into it. And let's go to that time period. Right before you got out of that truck, what were you thinking?
Well, it started out that we were all just packed up into the crew truck and we're headed home after a day's work. So, we're just thinking about getting a chance to get a shower and some dinner and get to bed, But we, as we were driving down this road, we saw this glow coming through the trees, which wasn't particularly alarming at first. But the closer we got, the stranger it seemed. And
it really looked like a fire, though, right in the middle of the woods, right? I mean, it literally looked like a fire.
Well, at first, we thought maybe it was like a campfire or like some hunters camped out,
Right.
Because, the ridge top sort of paralleled the road, and that was to our right. But then we realized that the light was coming from higher, like above the ridge top. So, I was thinking it might be a crashed plane. And later on, some of the other guys said that they thought something like that was the case. But finally, somebody said, "What's that?" And then, we started communicating about what it was. Because at first we just noticed it and didn't really think anybody else noticed it. It just kind of grew as something very out of place. But we could see ahead in the darkening evening that there was a break in the trees that was allowing the light from this thing to wash across the road ahead. So when we got up, we could see little glimmers through the trees, but when we got through this, into this opening, there was a clearing to the right where we could see where the light was coming from, and we saw this object hovering there. And one of the guys in the back, I think it was Alan Dallas, yelled out, "It's a flying saucer," right off the bat. This in response to, skeptics who said that, well, we just saw, a point of light off in the sky, like Jupiter or something. This was a metallic object, a disc-shaped thing hovering, outlined against the sky, less than 100 feet away.
I've read the parts of the book. I've read the book, and in the book, the object is described differently from what we saw in the movie. Explain how the object was different, because I know in the movie they portrayed it almost like a volcanic eruption on the bottom of the ship, which is kind of silly, but...
Well, we said it looked like molten metal.
Right.
That's like the metal from a blast furnace, which is
right,
white hot, golden hot, and giving off light in a kind of a, fuzzy sort of a way, a soft glow. But they, had it looking like molten lava, which, really wasn't like that. But, it was, it kind of lit up the area. The glow from it just kind of made everything look kind of strange,
Yeah. When you actually pulled up to the craft itself, though, I mean, you must have been thinking to yourself, "Oh my God, what is this thing?" Was your first instinct just to jump out of the truck, or did
it was just
pure instinct, right?
That was because I was thinking that it was going to take off.
Yeah.
Almost immediately. So it was really a little bit curiosity and a little bit showing off to the crew. But the closer I got, the more I realized that it wasn't leaving, and that this was a foolish move. I tried to save face and kept going, but I slowed down quite a bit. And the crew was getting pretty excited, and this part of the movie was pretty accurate.
Yeah.
How they were screaming and swearing at me to get away from there. But when it got louder and started to move is when I dove for cover. And there was a big pile of logging debris there, and there was a big log sticking up there, and I hid behind that. And they were yelling at me to get away from there. And I was trying to figure out, I was kind of torn between the safety of my hiding place and the safety of the truck, but,
yeah.
I'd pretty much made up my mind to get the hell out of there and get back to the truck. But, so when I raised up to go, at that point, I just felt this shock go through my body, like I'd been hit,
Yeah.
And,
yeah, I've heard you say that it could have been maybe a discharge because you got too close, and that might have been a force field there or something, or it could have been that they just shocked you to knock you out because you got too close to their ship and they just got upset with you.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Yeah.
It could have been a byproduct of the propulsion system, especially since it was getting louder and moving. That there might have been some increase in power that caused that, or just the fact that my upper body was the closest thing to it and the ground, that some kind of discharge there. Or
and not only that, I mean, the people who see crop circles and investigate them notice the radiation around crop circles. It could have just been a radiation field that you stepped right into, and that's what really caused the discharge, the radiation itself. Especially if it was giving off that glow you're talking about. That almost sounds like a radiation glow.
Well, like if it could ionize the air in some way,
right,
or charge it, that would provide a path that would, look for some way to ground out. But anyway, years later, one of the crew, Dwayne Smith, he became an electrician, and he was telling me then that he said that it sounded really electrical to him.
Mm.
And but we got a hold of the police file, and their records in interviewing the men. Some of them described it as just a foot-wide beam of energy, but one of them described it as looking like a long blue flame.
Oh wow!
Whether it was lightning or a laser beam, or it was just a powerful energy. They said that was just blinding and just powerful.
It's amazing how people have the same experience, and each one of them kind of described it a little bit different, even though they all had the same experience at the same time. That's always funny how the human mind does that to you.
Yeah, you get, 10 people see a car accident, they're all going to be a little bit different, but, you can piece it together, and this was just this powerful blast, but the main thing was the way it threw me back through the air, that they immediately concluded that it killed me, and they even said so to each other, and that was where all this screaming, "Forget us out of here," came from, because, they figured they were next.
Yeah.
And it also
who can blame them? Yeah.
Well, you know, and I don't blame them, but my family was upset with them that they, you know, would save themselves, but it was the only sensible thing. That if they thought that I had been killed, and they, you know, it's not going to do me any good to go pick me up. I'm already dead, and you know, they're going to wind up with the same fate. So,
no, in fact, Travis, you know, one part of the movie that I really love is the scene when you're and Mike Rogers at the end talk after, you know, there's some time period that's gone between you guys talking, and you guys get to talk again, and you tell them, I understand, you know. I always found that to be, like, the most human part of the movie. I really love that part. It just really showed that you and him really are that close. You and him, I'm sure you guys are still close today, right?
Well, we've had our days, you know. There was a kind of a blow up, and there was years where we didn't talk. But, you know, he was hospitalized here 3 or 4 weeks ago, and
oh my,
I went to see him. You know, it's just that kind of relationship. But
was that scene
always
accurate?
tried to, you know, I don't think he's ever gotten over the idea that he wished he'd have been more heroic. You know.
Yeah.
And my family kind of brought that down on him, but you know, various people, you know, have hinted at that. You know, some people have come right out and said, "Well, I wouldn't run off and leave my friend. What a rat!" You know.
Right.
And that's not fair. You know, he was brave enough to come back with the sheriff and his men that night. And you know, that's something they didn't put in the movie.
Right. Yeah.
But him and Ken and Alan, you know, agreed to go back with the sheriff when, you know, the other three said, well, I ain't ever going back there again, you know. And I think only one of them really kept that promise. But, you know, that was Steve. For years, you know, his family said that he didn't even like to go outside at night. You know, it really had a strong effect on him.
No, I mean, an experience like that, I can imagine to see something like that. I mean, that shakes your whole entire foundation of what reality is. To go through an experience
and most
like
of
that.
us really looked at it as a negative intrusion into our lives. I'd say all of us at first. But one guy, I don't think I'll say who it was, but, you know, as the years went by, he came to think that maybe he had missed out on something, that he wished it had happened to him.
Oh, wow.
And this one crew member actually went back and camped out at the site on the anniversary of the event, you know, hoping that there would be a repeat. But, you know, I told him, man, you don't want it, you know. You don't want it.
You know, let's talk about that a little bit, about the actual, you know, abduction itself, because, you know, reading the book and seeing the movie, there's two different tales that were told. In the book, of course, you know, you describe a human-looking being that actually brings some comfort to you after the initial aliens kind of scared the living bejesus out of you.
Yeah, I thought it was rescued.
Yeah, that's what I got when I read the book also. I was like, oh, man, he thought he was going to be rescued, and look at that. But why didn't they portray the human-looking people on the movie? I mean, I'm really kicking around on the show that question, because to me, there's a big thing now with human-looking aliens in a lot of these cases, like Billy Meyer's case, your case, to name just two. But there's, you know, other cases where human-looking aliens are involved. Do you think that maybe the studios suppress that information because they might, you know, be aware that there really are aliens that look just like us out there in the sky? You know, everybody's...
Well, you know, I've heard that theory a lot, and there might be something to that, but I think it partly just has to do with, you know, they're looking for the more sensational aspect, and the malevolent monster, you know, is what they tried to play up, and they're not alone in that. I going back, you know, I've done a number of interviews in which I related the entire set of events, and they would leave that human aspect, the human-looking beings, out of the story completely. Time and again, many interviews that I've done, all they talk about is these creatures.
And to me, that's the funny thing, is to me that's actually probably the most interesting part of the story. The fact that the human-looking being actually brought a little comfort to you. But not only that, that there is actually an alien that looks just like us, which really, that I mean, if the abduction itself didn't shake your foundation of what reality is, that moment in time,
whatever the human-looking beings were, whether they were, an extension of some Earth-based agency, or something that they've extracted from our population, or created by them, or we're their descendants, or whatever. To me, the presence of those human-looking beings, it could be the key to the whole thing, and for that to ignore it is just, perplexing to me. But then there's been a lot of things about this case that have kind of got a inappropriately disproportionate amount of attention or lack of it.
Yeah. But, it's funny because I don't know if you're familiar in detail with the Sumerians and the Anunnaki and, Planet X and all that stuff that Zachariah Sitchin speaks about. But the Anunnaki look humanoid, or look like humans. That's why I always thought that, maybe, what you got actually abducted by were the Anunnaki themselves. And, a lot of people have been saying, especially in the last decade or so, that the grays or the typical gray aliens are actually nothing more than worker aliens or almost robotic symbiont aliens. That this is really, they're being controlled by the Anunnaki. I don't know if you've heard that theory yourself, but could that possibly be the case, you think?
Well, my way of coping with the trauma of what happened to me has been to a large extent to sort of avoid the subject. So, you might be surprised, but I'd never even heard of Anunnaki until this last week. I got an email. And
oh, really?
Yeah, it's kind of new to me.
Oh, man, you really, you know what, I'm going to send you an email later on with some videos so you can check them out when you have some time. I mean, it's an amazing story. The Anunnaki supposedly seeded all life on Earth, and I don't know if you've heard of Zachariah Sitchin, but he's been researching this for he's been researching it for the last 40 years, maybe more years, and he's pretty much decoded the entire language, along with other scholars who've helped him out. Basically, they're saying the Bible's translation of the beginning of time is pretty much lifted from the Anunnaki's story written by the Sumerians. Everything from Adam and Eve, everything. It was done by aliens called the Anunnaki that came from Planet X. It's a fascinating story if it's real, and of course Sumerians were the first civilization that lived on planet Earth that we know about. They actually lived in what is now today called Iraq, which again, if you want to look into conspiracies, why are we in Iraq fighting a war? This might be the reason. If 2012 really might be something big that has to do with the Anunnaki, we might want to know what's going on with Sumeria and who the Anunnaki are. So this might be the reason why we're in Iraq, if not only for oil and money,
Well, it sounds like something I ought to pay more attention to.
Don't worry, I'm going to send you some emails. You're definitely going to enjoy the films, especially the stuff where Zachariah Sitchin is explaining who the Anunnaki are. It's just fascinating. It's all historical fact, which is a great thing. You can go back in a lot of history books and you can find out bits and pieces of information of the stuff he's put together in his work. But here, back to your case. There's a part in the movie that really tripped me out when I saw it, and I actually started talking about it earlier when we were on the phone. It's the scene where you're in the movie and you're actually going through what looks like an exhaust tube or some kind of a tube trying to escape the aliens. My question has always, been, did that really happen the way they showed it in the movie? Because that tripped me out.
It wasn't exactly like that. The passage, I was in this curving passageway, but it was more like a hallway. In the movie, they made things look kind of organic and cluttered, but it was really a very metallic and very smooth, featureless interior to the craft. And so,
Sorry about that, folks. We got disconnected by Block Talk Radio there. I'm going to get Travis back on the line. Get this right back. And we're back on the air. Sorry about that, Travis.
Okay, where did I lose you?
You left off where you were going off the exhaust pipe, and everything was actually more metallic and more neat and not as cluttered as the movie portrayed.
Well, you know, it was curving. It was a kind of a circular hallway, so I couldn't see very far behind me to see if they were catching up to me, and I couldn't see very far ahead of me to see if I was running into even more trouble. So that kind of led me into a kind of a strange feeling while I'm panicked and bolting down this passageway. I didn't know, you know, whether to pour on the gas or the brakes. Kind of mentally 1 foot on the gas and 1 foot on the brake.
I can imagine. And the funny thing is, of course, you know, if something like that is happening, I mean, really, where could you run? You're inside their ship. That's the part of it.
Very trapped feeling.
Oh, yeah.
It was so small and so humid, and I was having trouble breathing, very cramped, dimly lit, and it just had this really claustrophobic. It was just terrifying. I just felt like I had to get out of here. Got to get out of here.
Listen, I got a question here from the chat, and I'm going to ask you real quick. They want to know about the alien suits in the movie. Was that real? Did that actually? Did you see those?
No,
suits?
I did not encounter any suits. But you know, here's the deal. They decided to change the appearance of the aliens.
Okay.
And you know, the rationale for that was, well, you know, these beings have been described before to the point where people have been using them in beer commercials that are playing right now, and we want to show the audience something different. So they changed their appearance into a sort of different skin tone, more wrinkly, smaller eyes, and the one concession to what I actually saw was these suits with these big eyes.
Right.
So, you know, to sort of imply that, you know, some people that, you know, see some things with that description, that's what it is. It's really just a suit. But I didn't encounter any suits, you know, and I don't think they were wearing any suit. There might have been some kind of a skin covering. Their skin was kind of weird and puffy looking, but the eyes were like eyes, you know. I mean, they blinked. They had an iris. There was a
pupil
structured
there,
like a mammalian or a human eye, except for being very huge. But, you know, the similarity human.
You know, have you seen the alien autopsy video that came out in '95?
I've seen pictures from it. You know.
Did they look anything like that? Because in that video, the eye itself, it's all black as you can tell, but they peel out the outer layer of the eye and it looks like it's almost a giant contact lens, and then you can kind of see an eyeball with the iris and the pupil and everything. Did it kind of look like that alien a little bit, or was it?
Well, yeah, you know, and you know, it's a possibility that that film was showing something that was very close. Of course, you know, you're looking at a dead creature.
Yeah.
Which would change the appearance, but I don't know. Very similar, but probably different in ways. But you know, that would be a very. I'll tell you what I saw was closer to what was in that autopsy film than what was in the movie, Fire in the Sky.
Oh, there you go.
So, but I had no power to control that. I had a contract which, you know, basically, gave up any control on my part for what went into the film, and.
No, and not for nothing. I mean, I think Tracy Torme, who was the writer of the film, did a fantastic job, writing a movie. And actually, I think it's one of the most serious films when it comes to ufology ever made. I mean,
and he really tried hard to stick closer to what really happened than he was allowed to, because you know, there were a lot of pressures, and everybody involved has their creative input, and the studio has their interest, and you know, being true to the story isn't necessarily the highest priority. They're trying to make something commercial, and so, you know, even Tracy wound up losing some of the battles. I wrote letters and tried to keep him from doing certain things that.
Yeah, he's had a little rough in Hollywood. I know he had issues also with the show Sliders that he wrote and created, and I heard some of the battles he had on Fire in the Sky also, and Yeah, he is a good writer, and I do want to give him credit because I do think that he did a really honest job of at least making a serious film about your case. He didn't treat it as a hokey story. There was a serious film there, and he deserves credit for that, I think.
Yeah, he did his best to keep his word to me about sticking to story, not letting it get distorted. But the way people of what's called creative differences.
Well, yeah, in Hollywood you're always going to have those, unfortunately. And let me ask you, was Dallas the way he really was portrayed in the movie? Was he really like that in person?
He was quite a character.
He was a character because I know they thought he was a suspect right away. I mean, he was suspect numero uno, as they say.
Yeah, he had a history of legal troubles, and I heard later that some of that continued. I don't know if he's got his life straightened out now, but I think he's doing a lot better than he was back then.
What do you think of the cast they got for the movie? Were you happy with D.B. Sweeney and the rest of the guys they picked? I mean, the kid from E.T. was in it, which was great. I always forget his name. I'm bad with names, as I told you the first time I met you, but Henry, I think his name, Henry or something.
Henry Thomas.
Henry Thomas, there we go.
Yeah.
He was really good in the movie also, and I mean, the whole cast was phenomenal, I thought.
Yeah, I thought they some of the casting was so right on, that they were really a lot like the people that they chose to play,
And of course, you actually have a cameo in the film, which some people might not know about, but you're actually in the movie. There's a scene with you in the film, right?
You're right.
Yeah.
In the scene where Mike Rogers comes in and confronts the townspeople at a church meeting, I'm sitting in the crowd there, my wife and I, and I've got a beard on, and it's my own beard, but
no, and that was a really powerful scene because right after that they took the lie detector test, and you guys have taken what? I know you've taken at least 5 or 6 lie detector tests yourself, correct?
Yeah, I passed 6 different lie detector tests about this. But
Jamie, I know you had a question for Travis also.
Yeah, I'm just trying to keep up with the chat questions. This one comes from the Vinny. He wants to know to Travis, do you feel that the beings were peaceful or hostile to you? And can you give any examples of either situations?
Well, at the time, I perceived it as extremely hostile. I felt very threatened. But, in retrospect, I don't know that was the case. At the time, I'm regaining consciousness, and I'm in all this pain, and I'm having trouble breathing. Just being short of oxygen it creates panic in you all by itself. And the shock of seeing them with the pain and with the lack of oxygen just, was enough to cause me to lose it. So, I was very fearful because of their appearance. But in retrospect, the fact that I was returned alive, says a lot.
Oh, yeah. And in fact, in the film, they have a scene when you first wake up inside the ship. They're like in a bubble, and it's kind of all gooey, and there's disgusting stuff in there. And you break out of that bubble, and it's like a cocoon. And, of course, you are in, in zero gravity, so you actually fly into another one of these cocoons, and there's a dead body in there. Did that actually happen also? There's
none of that stuff.
None of that stuff happened?
Not at all. And I really can't, find any parallels in what actually happened in those particular things that you mentioned there.
Yeah. And I know that the aliens never communicated verbally with you or telepathically or anything like that. At no time did they try at all to even communicate at all with you. Just that one time the humanoid alien came at you and kind of comforted you a little bit.
Well, if they were trying to reach me telepathically, if they can do that, I was definitely not in a very receptive state. I was basically a wild man. I was totally deranged with fear.
Oh, rightfully so. Anybody who wakes up in a situation like yours, paranoia, terrified, all the words you can think of go through your mind. I couldn't imagine myself being in that situation personally. Even though I wouldn't mind it if I am assured that I'm going to be back alive on Earth. okay and safe and sound. I don't know if I'll deny the opportunity to go on one of these ships and actually take a trip. You know what I mean? But looking back, I mean, I know you might have thought of this 1,000 billion times now since it happened, and I know recently we had the anniversary of the event itself on November 5th. Thinking back all these years, I mean, would you change anything from what happened? Would you not get on the truck, or would you still have gone along with the experience since you know that you survived it?
Well, even knowing that I survived it, I wouldn't get out of the truck.
Really?
Yeah. And by the time I was returned, it was already a worldwide story. There were reporters from all over the world here in Snowflake by the time I was returned. So I never went forward and, told anything. I didn't have a choice. And knowing what I know now about, the effects of speaking out about this, maybe I never would have,
Yeah.
But I didn't really have much choice. So it was just a matter of defending myself against accusations, or at least, agreeing to be interviewed by people who sought me out.
Like tonight, which, again, I can't thank you enough for. By the way, in the last 30 minutes of the show, we're going to open the lines up. If people want to have any questions for Travis, please call into the number 347-205-9961. Let's keep it on topic. Let's keep it clean. Let's keep it nice and gentlemanlike. And whoever has the best questions for the night, Travis, I haven't even told you about this, but the best question for the night for Travis Walton gets a free DVD copy of Fire in the Sky, sent to you by me. So there you go. It's a little promotion I'm doing here for you.
Okay, great.
So yeah, guys, last half hour, light up the boards and let's get some questions in for Travis. But going back here to the story itself, can you kind of go over a little bit your recollection of when you actually woke up back on Earth, and what ran through your mind that moment in time when you saw yourself back here alive and having the experience put behind you? And did you see them leaving, or did you just wake up and then you were here and that was it?
Well, I woke up and I was face down, and there was a light above me, so I looked to see where the light came from, but I didn't look quick enough because it went off before I could see. So when I looked up, I could see the smooth, chrome-like surface of the bottom of this craft hovering there, but it wasn't lit at that point. And then, it was just there for an instant when it just shot up into the sky. And that was really kind of amazing how quickly it moved. It moved the air some, but it didn't like shriek through the sky, even though it was just a dot in just, an instant.
Yeah, it's kind of like the UFO I saw. I've seen 2 UFOs myself, one in California when I was a kid, which of course, California is not that far out from the Nevada desert, so, it could have been one of our own, but I saw one when I was a child. I saw one with my father years later here in Florida, and it was just a dot. It just vanished into the sky. It just took off at an immense speed. The kind of speed that these crafts are doing, if they really wanted to come down here and hurt us, as a lot of people are fearing, alien abduction or alien, invasion. If they can come here from another, world that is light years away, they would have done it a long time ago if they wanted to hurt us. So, I guess there is a positivity of your case that, you were brought back. They didn't kill you. You weren't permanently taken off a planet and put in a slave camp somewhere on another planet or anything like that.
Yeah, and they didn't dump me back in the woods where they picked me up.
Right.
Actually put where I could get some help.
Yes, that right there shows that there is some sort of, of a human feeling within these aliens, and they know that what's right and what's wrong. Which again, and it's funny, I'm a big fan of Michio Kaku and his lectures of alien contact and of different civilizations, and he makes it a very great statement when he talks about Type 0 to Type 1 to Type 2 and Type 3 civilizations, and he says a race of beings that come from another star system light years away has to be either Type 2 or Type 3 civilization compared to our Type 0 civilization here on Earth. So to them, we're nothing more than really ants in their backyard. That's really what we are in a sense. So it's good to know that even though we're ants, there is some humanity in them that they wouldn't, just stomp on us and get rid of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm happy to not be stomped on.
Yeah.
I should have done that for my fellow man.
I'm happy you're not stumped out either, man. It's if not, I would not have you on my show here tonight, and it would just be a boring night here on the Jackal's Head.
We got another chat question here. Laura wants to know, what was his total conclusion of the experience and what it meant to him? Like, what was the overall experience after he, everything was said and done?
Well, there's no single conclusion. There's a whole lot of different conclusions. The question is, what did they want? What was the reason for it? Why did it happen? What do I come away with? There's lots of questions, and some of them are still unanswered. But I got to say that when you're trying to cope with something difficult in your life, you try to look for the good in it. Something positive. Because you have to accept it, so you may as well look for something good. And there's plenty of negative, but I did learn a lot about myself and about human nature, and about the so-called authorities and the experts that are supposed to be in charge of all this, it kind of changed my perspective. Of course, our place in the grand scheme of things is, I think I take a much wider, broader perspective than I had before.
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah. I
also want to
definitely see that.
Did you experience any type of weightlessness or anything?
No, gravity. Well, I don't know. When I first woke up, I felt so weak and so unable to move that there's possibility that the gravity might have been adjusted to be heavier or something. But other than that, I didn't feel motion or inertia or movement of any kind. So
your breathing was okay in the ship, and you didn't feel out of breath or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I was struggling to catch my breath. That's the reason I was saying it. I had this suffocating feeling. It was all humid and just hard to catch my breath. Now, whether that was because there was something wrong with the atmosphere in there or because there was something wrong with me, I don't know. Because the beam did hit me in the upper body and could have affected my lungs in some way.
That's true, yeah. Travis, real quick, let me ask you a question. Reflecting back on the story, when you first started having the regression sessions, I know that there was a lot of information that came out of that. You pretty much remember the entire case, or at least most of what happened. How long was it exactly that you remembered as soon as you got back? And how much else did you remember from the regression case, or the regression session?
Well, the regression really just was for the first time to allow me to relate what I was already remembering. I just couldn't talk about it. It was just so traumatic I'd break down. So it was allowing me to relate this without that extreme fear, to the point where I could tell the researchers what had happened. It didn't and the emphasis wasn't trying to bring out microscopic details. It was just basically to try to get rid of that traumatic thing that just kept me from even being able to talk about it. And it did make it more manageable from that point on, although that fear was with me. Pretty damn intense for a long time. It never completely went away. But there was some danger to pushing deeper that I decided not to pursue anymore. Hypnosis. And of course, you
haven't had any more sessions since that initial session. Are you worried that you might remember more than what happened? I know you didn't remember much, and you were gone for a few days. So
Well, first, I wondered what had happened, and I searched my mind. What happened seemed to be just a fragment of something more. I was gone for 5 days and 6 hours.
Right.
This conscious period was just a matter of, when I was returned, I thought it was the same night.
Right, yeah, I can imagine that, yeah.
My family, informed me that it had been over 5 days, which was quite a shock. But, so there was a lot that I couldn't remember, whether I was unconscious the whole time or not.
Oh, that must have freaked you out, man, when you woke up and you saw that it was 5 days later. That must have just freaked you the hell out.
But then that thing of having one foot on the brake and one on the accelerator, comes back to me, and wondering what happened to me and trying to figure it out and wanting some answers, but at the same time not wanting to know.
Yeah.
So the point was, okay, if I do find out, do I want to tell anybody?
Yeah.
It's not been all pleasant for me. I've had a lot of supporters, and a lot of, even here in this town, a lot of people who, believe me and know me and, rely on their knowledge of my character. But at the same time, there's been negative that I wish I didn't have to experience. So,
Yeah, and you got supporters here on this show, man. I mean, I'm a true believer that that what you said happened definitely happened, and I've said it several times on the show here. I mean, it's funny. You still live in the same town. You still live with the same people. You didn't go Hollywood when the movie came out or anything like that. You're still the same person. You're just Travis Walton.
Yeah, I work at it. I try to live a normal life to the point where I just try to go on and act as if it didn't happen, which has a way of breaking through to me from time to time that they're not going to let me get away with just being taken for myself, but that'd be my dream,
Yeah.
I'm annoyed with the idea of just moving off somewhere and change my name and just, to see what it would be like to be taken for myself.
Incognito, yeah. Jamie, you're going to ask a question there?
Yeah, there was a question posted earlier about, they were wondering if Travis ever thought of, or has anybody ever asked him to do a movie and make it more real, like have you advise it to make it as real as possible.
Or like to remake the film later on with
I was talking to some people that were interested in that and who actually made inquiries about getting a group of investors together to actually buy the rights from Paramount and reshoot the parts that were farther afield. But it turned out to be they were wanting entirely too much. I don't know. I'll have to look into the possibility that their rights could expire, or maybe another approach to it. But it would be cool if it could be told just exactly as it happened, especially with some of the subtleties that I've become aware of as time has gone by.
Look, if they can remake really bad movies like they're doing nowadays, a really good movie should be remade if it can be more honest and truthful to what the story really was. I hope they do, one day get to that, and you guys, get to remake the film. I've always, actually liked that idea to have it remade and told exactly like portrayed in the book, because to me it's just more fascinating, to be honest with you, to know that there is human-looking aliens and they, one came out. In fact, let me answer your question. In the film, of course, they show the examination scene, and it was very graphic. Was any of that at all factual, or was that also completely in left field?
Well, I saw their instruments laid out there.
Right.
And I really, in the aftermath of this, agonized over what they might have done to me, At first, I was pretty anxious about it, but, in light of the fact that I've been, extraordinarily healthy ever since, I quit worrying about bad after effects. But at the time, it tormented me to think of what they might have been doing. And so, Hollywood just went the next step to, explore those thoughts of what might have been done to me. And so, but that didn't happen while I was conscious. Whatever sort of procedures they were doing on me was while I was out, or at least I didn't have a memory of it at that time.
Did you have like marks and stuff all over your body, or scrapes, cuts, anything like that, bruises?
I had one mark on one arm, but there was really no way to tell if that was something that happened during my experience or something that just happened as, at work.
See, to me, it almost sounds like it wasn't really as violent of an experience, even though it was scary, obviously, but if it's not as violent, I mean, that definitely brings a little bit.
Like in the movie, they have me being slammed down on the table like a hunk of meat, but dragged around and stuff like that, but that wasn't really where the trauma comes from.
Which, again, it makes for a great film, though. Makes for a great film.
The actor is being, struggling to breathe through this membrane, which I thought was a pretty useful device to explain the panic that I was feeling, because, if you feel like you're suffocating and you're panicking because of it, how do you show that on film? It just shows an actor standing there, hyperventilating and acting scared. They wouldn't really get the point of feeling of not being able to breathe, having your mouth and nose covered. It was a very good metaphor for that suffocation that I was feeling.
And it's still a great scene. So, regardless, I mean, it made for a great film. But it's great to hear you actually tell the story of what really happened, considering how Hollywood fabricated some of the stuff that happened. And to be honest with you, like I said, I think it would be much more fascinating if they did go ahead and they did remake it the more actual real to life tale, a real life story of what the book said.
Either an actual true to the facts dramatization, or a much more detailed sort of.
Now, you haven't looked into doing like a big time documentary on this, have you?
Yeah. Well, there's been a number of documentaries, so-called documentaries done, but nothing that really
nothing official though
gave that kind of detail and analysis that like what I put into the book. I did, I put as much detail in there as I could scratch together, And,
now, listen, Travis, I'm going to open the lines here in a few minutes, so I just want to let everybody know, again, the number is 347-205-9961. Again, the best callers, in fact, I'm not going to give one. I'm going to give 2 DVDs away of Fire in the Sky. I want your best questions for Travis Walton. Keep it nice, keep it simple, keep it clean, and start calling in. And about, I'll say 10 minutes or so, and I'm going to start getting to your calls, people. I have a couple of guys already waiting in the switchboard here, so I'll get to you guys first. Don't worry. 207, I know you're there. Just wait up, and we'll get you in a little bit. But Travis, back to the story here. And this is something that I've pondered myself, over the years, really since I saw the movie. I actually saw the film when I was a child. I was, in my early teens when I saw the film itself. And I've always wondered, I always wanted to ask you, were you into UFOs at all when you were a kid? Was it something that you were always into, or you never really had even a curiosity about UFOs?
Well, I was accused of being deeply into it or something, but that's not really
guilty over here.
I had a wide variety of interests. When we had long drives to work, so the conversations were pretty wide ranging. We talked about everything, and even UFOs had come up because of some articles in the paper. They meant about some cattle mutilations in the area and whatnot, but it wasn't like any kind of an obsession or I'd never bought a book on the subject. I'd never subscribed to a UFO magazine or ever gone to a conference or anything like that. So it was I think probably the one thing that might have made me pay some attention to it was the fact that my brother had seen an object some 7 or 8 years before that he told us about. But even that's rather commonplace, I guess. I quote the statistic in the book that if 1 out of 7 Americans have seen a UFO, then most likely everybody's got more than 7 friends or relatives or acquaintances. So it's inevitable that just about anybody knows somebody who has had a sighting.
In fact, Jamie here visits UFOs frequently. We're actually doing our show together soon on a different network, Paranormal Network TV or TV network. And over there, we're actually going to call the show Skywatchers Radio, which is going to be all about UFOs and ufology. And that's going to be in the near future. In fact, I would love to have you back on, in the future to be on that show, if it's okay with you, with your blessing, of course. That would be fantastic. It will be actually broadcast on Dish Network, which is great. That's going to be an amazing treat for everybody here who's join us over there. But yeah, with your blessing, if you ever want to come back for that, that'll be great. I'm going to go ahead and get to the callers. I have a lot of callers on the line, so I'm going to actually get a gentleman here on the line who's an actual abductee himself. His name is Ron Slusher. He was a guest on my show not too long ago. He actually did it the first time ever he did an actual interview. Was on my show here. Ron, I believe you're on the air. Are you there with us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We hear you perfectly. You're on the air with Travis Walton, myself, and Jamie.
Oh, hi, Travis. My name is Ron Slusher, and I'm an abductee, too, and I live here in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm 62, and in fact, I worked with one of your cousins as an electrician on a building here in Phoenix called TGen. And my first question is, where were you at from Heber?
Heber was the town where I was returned to.
Yeah, but I've camped all over those hills, and in fact, my youngest son and I came back from the Hopi Reservation once, and we saw a flying saucer just south of Jake's Corner, just moving right over the road at treetops. That was like my son said, your typical upside-down pie plate. Now, that was south of Jake's Corner. Where were you at from there, like?
Oh, well, Jake's Corner's a long ways from Heber, but I used to ride a school bus back when I lived in Payson, and went through Jake's Corner every day, but on the way to school.
Oh, yeah, so you were the other way out of Payson then, weren't you? You would have been to the east of Heber then, where you guys were cutting wood?
Well, we would drive out from Snowflake to Heber and then go from there south towards the Rim Road.
Towards the Rim Road, okay. Okay, I know exactly where you're at now.
The borderline between the Apache Reservation and the Sick-Reach Forest.
Yeah, in fact, we just had a big fire up there a while back, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the big fire that burned most of that down. And another question I had now, I saw other humans, and then I've had several trips, right? Did you ever see that? And was the craft curved?
Well, yeah, Travis.
Yeah, they were curved, and the other humans, well, I took them to be humans, did not appear to be, captors or abductees or anything like that. They were definitely in charge of themselves. So, are you referring to other humans as?
Well, so the people I talk to are human. In fact, I'm 6 foot tall, a little taller than me. But I also saw people, and several times now, I've seen people on, if you want to put them on gurneys or whatever, in the farther in a different part. Did you see anything like that ever, or is it just all one-on-one with you?
It was basically all about me, and I was a problem.
Oh, so then you never saw anybody like other abductees while you were on board, right?
No.
And my next question, I have the crescent C on my shoulder. And I heard you say something earlier about a mark on you. Where is it at, and what's it look like?
Well, the examining physician described it as a 2-millimeter red spot, but it was not over any major blood vessel. So, although the whole thing, the mention of that suggested to some of my critics that this whole thing was a drug hallucination. But like I said, it wasn't over any blood vessels. So, and then there was no way to determine whether it had happened during my experience or during the work day before this happened.
Where was it at on your body?
It was on the inside of my right arm, I believe.
On the inside?
Yeah, one of my arms. I don't recall which, but the doctor made a note of that. I'm sure I recorded that detail in the book.
Are you still living in Snowflake?
Yeah.
What was that? Huh?
No, I was saying, we'll let you go.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Travis.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
And remember, stay tuned. At the end of the show, I'm going to announce the winners of the DVDs. 2 of them. From me to you guys. Here, let's get to another caller here on the switchboard here. Let's see. 1111, Skype caller. You're on the air with Travis Walton, myself, and Jamie. Welcome to the show.
Hey everyone. Hey Travis. This is Vinny. I'm listening in on your on the show and everything, and I just had a question, based not based on the past, but based on everything since then. I was just wondering if you've ever felt that maybe they've come back, or they've been watching you, or any abductions since then, or anything like that.
Well, I was certainly fearful that they would come back. Something I did not want to occur.
Yeah.
However, I've said it before that if it did, I doubt I'd tell anybody.
Yeah, well, I understand it. And I had one more question. Do you follow, because the reason I'm asking this is because I've worked with Southern Ohio Alien Abduction Research Team, and we've worked with abductees. And I'm going to go ahead and ask you a common question that a lot of them are asked. And I was wondering, since your experiences, and I know you've promoted and you've been promoted with your story, but have you yourself taken time to study other claims of contact or abductions and things like that, or do you just leave all that in the background and you don't even mess with it?
Yeah, I've avoided the subject just because it's hard enough to deal with my own experience. Inevitably, people come to me and relate things to me, and I picked up a lot of stuff by osmosis, but I have not done study of any individual case, to a degree thorough enough. In my book, I criticize people who made expressed opinions of what had happened without, even bothering to get the facts. I quoted Emerson, condemnation without examination is the height of ignorance.
Yeah.
So, I've emphasized, the idea that if you're going to comment on this case, then you better do your homework, get the facts. And
right.
In the book, I did my best to lay everything out there. So with the idea that, don't just necessarily take my word for it. All of this stuff is documented and verifiable from independent sources. But I'm bringing it all together and correlating it and recording it here for you, and check it out for yourself. And so that's where I was left with that, is just to try to get people to investigate my case. And so when I'm asked about other cases, I have to say, unless I did the study, I'm not going to make a public pronouncement about any other case other than my own, because I believe some are like mine, some are not. There's many different phenomena going on here. Some of them are psychological, some of them are misidentified things, some of them are just vivid dreams, but there's a hardcore reality here, and I think I've got a pretty good feel for which is which. But like I said, I would never make a public judgment about such a thing unless I'd investigated.
Yeah, in your case, one thing I could definitely say about you yourself in your case is that you've never seemed like the type of person who is trying to make people believe him. You're just telling your story of what happened.
Yeah, here's the facts. Take it or leave it.
Exactly.
I never bring this up on my own. I've never sought out an interview around town, or around my family and friends. I don't ever bring it up.
Yeah, and again, let's not forget that you were thrusted upon this situation. It's not like you knew this was about to happen, and it was planned, and this is something that just happened randomly, really. I mean, you pretty much got got abducted. This it's not common that this type of thing happens, but you've always been honest in the simple fact that you just tell your story, and if people believe it, they believe it. If not, oh well. And that's what you can tell.
Somebody in the community comes to me with a question, I'll answer them. It's not like I tell them I won't talk about that.
Right.
I just answer it and move on. I'll very often change the subject away from there. But
I can imagine.
Not to avoid, but just to not give it any more, time than it is necessary.
Yeah, and let me ask you, what are you doing nowadays? On your time. I know that you're a busy man still, I can imagine. But what are you doing today? What is Travis Walton doing right now?
I worked at the local wood mill for a number of years, and then I went to a paper recycling place. Made paper for 11 years, and a year ago I retired from there, and because I'd been working like 12 hours a day, lots of overtime for much of those 11 years, I've just been catching up on projects that had been on hold for a long time, so that's been keeping me busy. Probably will for some time now.
Yeah, and unfortunately one of those projects was the UFO Info Weekend, which, as we both know, we found out actually it's no longer going to happen, but is there any other conventions or anything else you're going to be involved in the near future?
Well, the big conference in Laughlin in February, I'll be there speaking.
Is there going to be a book signing and stuff there? Or?
Yeah, I'll be doing. I've been working on an updated edition of the book, and that should be. That will definitely be finished and available by then. Probably the only place anyone can get the books will be, either at one of my appearances or through my website, because that's just the way I want to do it now.
I don't know. Are you gonna have ebooks of your book also? Because one of our friends here in the show, Dennis Crenshaw, who's a good friend of ours, has a book out on the Middle Earth theory and or Hollow Earth theory, I should say, and he's put a book on the internet on ebooks. I know Davini's also going to put his book on ebooks and stuff. Is that a route you might take with your book?
That's something to consider. I've been thinking about a number of things. Some other languages. Right now it's only in English and German, but I'd like to do a Spanish language translation, also in Italian. But probably a book on tape for the blind, or people, over-the-road truckers, those kind of people that need an auditory.
The coast-to-coast fans who need they need to play something while they're driving all night. The bumper, instead of bumper music, I have Travis Walton's "Fire in the Sky" on the radio. But it's funny you say that you want to do a Spanish version. I'm actually Latin myself. I'm Cuban, and my father speaks not a word of English. He speaks only Spanish, and he was the one who told me about your case, and he was the one that took me to see the movie as a kid.
Wow.
So that you definitely should look into doing a Spanish version of the book, because they're interesting.
I'm trying to get my son to do the translation because he's fluently bilingual.
Oh, is he really?
Spanish. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know your son spoke Spanish.
Yeah, he's going to visit Costa Rica this summer.
Oh, nice. How many kids do you have, Travis?
I have 4 kids and 8 grandchildren.
Wow. I know didn't you just have a grandchild born not long ago?
Well, 2 of them are just had their 1-year birthday.
Oh, okay. That's what it was, yeah. Oh, that's awesome, man. Congratulations. That's a big family. That's a beautiful family.
Yeah, I love them. It's a joy in my life.
Are you still married to the same lady you were dating when the experience happened?
Yep, I'm still married to her.
Oh, that's wonderful. See, and they say there's no hope for hopeless romantics who get married and live a long life together. See, it can happen, people. In fact, I'm having a relationship expert on my show in about a week, actually, and that's one of the topics we're going to cover, how it seems like people believe that people can be happy in a marriage these days, and look at that, you've made it all these years with your lovely wife.
Yeah, well, society has opted for a whole array of conditions that make marriage a difficult proposition.
Oh, yes. Travis, let me ask you, what are your thoughts on the disclosure project that they've been, of course, running around here, working on for the last few years? What do you think of that, and when do you think, or do you think, there will be disclosure on the truth about aliens?
Well, I applaud the effort, but I don't know that they're ever going to come forth with anything until it suits them. It won't be because they're responding to pressure. It'll be because in some way that it gains them something. And for right now, I think that the reason there's so much secrecy is because for whatever reason, they perceive it as being something that would be a big negative for them.
Yeah, and in a sense, I almost understand why the government will keep it hidden. I mean, one thing that I tell a lot of people is, let's say for example the government knows that there are aliens out there, and they know the panic that might cause, but they also understand that to the aliens we are nothing but ants in an anthill, really, and to them we're not a concern unless we travel to their territory. And I think that's the point where we're going to really find out if there's life out there, fully disclosed by the government. I mean, we all know there's life out there, but fully disclosed by the government. It's the point where we have the technology to travel not only beyond our planet, but beyond our actual solar system here and move out in incredible speeds. That's when they'll let us know. Of course, I'm pretty sure they already have ships back engineered that could do this now, but they've probably been tested for a long time before they actually are put into use.
Oh, there's a few events that could take it out of their hands.
Right.
If they had a Roswell-style crash in a major city, that would be impossible for them to cover up. And so, that or some direct action by these creatures or these beings that to make it known because they chose to. Something like that might take it out of the hands of our governments, but for now, whatever they know is the secret. Whether it's just knowledge that it happened, and maybe they've got a few tidbits here that we don't have, and there's a lot of questions for them, or maybe something much worse, where they've been interacting with them in a way that's almost subversive to our interests. Whatever the case, it's not anything I think they're anxious to share with us.
And now, wouldn't it be kind of awkward and ironic if, say, in 2012, a big giant mothership lands in the White House lawn, and the ship's door opens up, and out comes a 50-foot Native American-looking alien? Wouldn't that just be the end of all? And the first thing they say is, we're back, and we're taking our land back.
Yeah, you can imagine all kinds of scenarios in which such a visit could be disruptive to the max, but I don't know. It might be surprising how, especially with modern sensibilities, that maybe we've handled it a little better than that.
Yeah, a lot of people fear that it'll be kind of like War of the Worlds all over again when, as I'm sure you remember, you don't remember probably personally, but you've heard the stories that when Orson Welles did the War of the Worlds on radio, people panicked and went on the streets with guns and whatnot. I don't think that would happen nowadays if they disclose that there's life.
Probably not. It's probably more likely that the real fallout would be for the authorities rather than for the population.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't even think religious institutions would suffer all that greatly because they're coming out now publicly and saying, you know what, it's part of God's plan to have aliens. They're our brothers also. I
personally don't see any contradiction necessarily between what's happening and religions. It's just, you could, if you want to, interpret your religion to exclude it, you can, but most religions do have, tenets that can take this whole thing in stride.
Well, I mean, speaking just the Sumerian, of course, there are people believe in the Anunnaki, but Devaney, who's still on the line with us, he's an expert in the Kabbalah, And in the Kabbalah itself, it talks about these creatures that are very, they resemble the Greys, basically. They're very much like the Greys, and that's in the Kabbalah itself, which, of course, is the oldest book known to man, really, when it comes to, it's not a religious book, but it's the oldest work of religion, or religious, that there is on the planet. In fact, Vinny, you're still on the line. That's the correct statement, right?
You got it a little backwards. The creatures are the reptilians.
Well, there you go.
But
there are other.
Yeah, there are other creatures that are throughout that, but they're very well described, and some of them are physical like us, and some of them are what we call incorporeal, which means they can be more translucent or more on a spiritual or astral realm, and some of them are in between. But they're classified very different, and it makes it very clear that there's different types of beings out there, which always raises the question of, if they are multidimensional, or if this was a way of explaining, to ancient man that they're multidimensional beings, and that's all up to the reader on that and their perception and things like that.
Well, the skeptics have tried to portray this phenomena as being sort of recent origin, and that all of this stuff is just, from the 50s on, and that there's really no historical. That's just not the case. I was reading the other day a book by Thomas Paine, one of our founding fathers of this country, a book called, let's see, what was the name of it? Reason. That's the reason for the title. Anyway, in which he goes into great depth in describing the solar system, the planets, and all that. And, I was kind of shocked at the degree of their understanding in 1700s of the, cosmology of the solar system and the universe. They had a pretty good working knowledge back then, and imagined, conjectured that there was inhabitants on those other bodies, just like ours. Just a logical extension of.
Yeah, and they have found literally, I don't know exactly the right number, but more than a dozen Earth-like planets already, and they speculate there might be 100,000 Earth-like planets just in the Milky Way alone.
The name of Thomas Paine was The Age of Reason.
You can imagine
and that is a big point that you bring up, though. There are a lot of people that do have the understanding that the UFO issues or alien contact or any of that, there is a large group that understands that this goes back as far as we have writing. In fact, one of the first American cases of an abduction event was we had some Union soldiers who were in Texas when Texas was not even technically a state yet, and they were given martial license through the state that was being formed to hunt down some what they called criminals that were running to Mexico. And so they tracked them down, and they actually went across the border into what we would call Mexico now, and they came back expressing an abduction case. They said that they had came to a cave where they thought these Mexicans were at, and they were trying to hunt them down and arrest them. And this big event took place around Mexico, and I want to say that it was around the time when Texas was just being formed as a state. But they basically they claimed there was an entire small company of men that claimed that they went into a cave that they thought was being inhabited by a light. They thought it was a campfire from some of the refugees that they were chasing, which they were running into Mexico, and this was right on the borderline in Mexico. And so they go into the cave, and they report seeing people in there, and they were kind of lured, I guess, in a weird way, and they came back reporting to their, I guess, their commanders back in what we would call America, that they had this weird sense that they were welcomed, and that it was like meeting old friends, and just all kinds of weird stuff. And our military has been involved with that, and that's public knowledge. But it goes back further than that. I mean, as far as you can, because America's not a very old country. I mean, you can go back. Yeah, you can go back and you can find ancient writings of what you could interpret as people being given information or even material things from non-humans, or people that look like humans that were clearly a lot more advanced and things like that. But yeah, a lot of people have the idea that Roswell or your case were some of the first cases, and it is so much older than that.
Yeah, it goes way back. And why wouldn't it, you know?
Yeah,
it
makes
our
perfect
time
sense.
frame relative to them, you know, they're way advanced of us, and the predominant theory is that because they're much older than us, their civilization has been around a lot longer. And
yeah, well, if they can come down here, they've definitely been here longer.
And these various stars, and some of them have been there for hundreds of thousands of, or more years before us. So they, you know, things happen at a different rate, but generally, even if they happened at the same rate, they just got started a lot sooner than us. Look how far we've come in 100 years.
Well, you know, of course, we had a little help, according to some experts. You know, they did lend a hand. And you know what? It makes perfect sense that they would lend a hand, if you really think about it. You know, this planet is so rich and beautiful and so full of you know, really amazing things that, you know, why not study a planet like this? Why not come down here and you know, eat off the fruits of the land and, you know, and enjoy the world that this is? Because, you know, and we really take it for granted as individuals. We take what we have here for granted, but we have a gorgeous planet here, and we really need to take better care of our planet. That's actually why I played that Michael Jackson song earlier, because I really do believe that we don't take care of our planet enough. But you can imagine, I mean, especially some of the reports of some of these aliens and where they come from, and some say they have problems with their atmosphere, and that, you know, they're here because their society is dying out and whatnot. It'd make perfect sense to come to a world like this. It really would. Travis, I know it's getting on here. We've got 13 minutes left on the show. I want to thank you so much again, man, for taking part in the show tonight and coming out and talking to us here on the Jackal's Head. And, you know, I don't think there's words deep enough to express how grateful I am for you being here tonight, especially after everything that's happened, you know?
Yeah, it's been an interesting discussion.
Travis, anything you want to tell the audience here that's listening? We have a lot of people in the chat room, by the way. Any last words you want to give them out? You know, give us your links or your website, and you know, any other details you want to share with us real quick.
Well, check out the website, traviswalton.com, and I'll be updating that here in the near future. I just got back from speaking in Bavaria and Istanbul.
Nice.
It was an interesting trip, and I'll be going back some of those places. Anyway, so, you know, there's a place on the website where I announce upcoming talks, and there's a bunch of those I'll have to get on there.